What are the top 10 things you need for urban survival? On this episode of Survival Dispatch News, we have an awesome panel who is going to cover the entire thing. And we're back. Welcome to Survival Dispatch News. My name's Chris Dwulet. I'm with ammo.com. I'm your anchor for this episode, and we have an amazing panel here today. I'm going to start off with my good friend, who I like to refer to as the Dean of Demolition. It's Mike Sterling, a longtime EOD technician and a longtime veteran in the U.S. military. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks for having me here. I love being here.
Dude, it is a pleasure to have you. And we have a very special guest on the panel today. We have the CEO of Nutrient Survival, a former Army Ranger, and a man who graduated top of his class from Wespoint. Welcome back to the show, Eric Christianson. It's great to have you.
Right on. Good to be back. Thanks.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. It's great having you on for this discussion. And of course, we have the man himself, the man behind Survival Dispatch. It is the CEO himself, Chris Heaven. Great to have you back.
Good to be here, and thank you for taking the anchor position, Chris.
Dude, it is a pleasure. I am really excited. We've got a lot of cool things coming up here for Survival Dispatch News, but today we have a very special topic. And before we get into that, I want to make sure that you all have taken a second, get down in the comments section, click that like, subscribe button, click the bell notification icon there so you get notified every time we upload new content here at Survival Dispatch. It really helps. And for your comment today, I want you to let us know what your top 10 list is. We're going to give you ours and why we think that these are great things to have, but I want to know what we missed. What do you guys think would be a great addition that needs to be on your list? If you could leave that comment for us, that would be fantastic. We're going to start with Chris himself, the man behind Survival Dispatch. Give us some ideas of what are things you think are necessary for urban survival, considering that so many people in North America live inside cities.
Well, I'm sure all y'all will come up with better ideas than me, but this is kind of my top 10 thing. First and foremost, I want a pistol, and my choice would be a staccato duty. I know there's more expensive staccato 2011s, but I don't want a hair trigger. I want a 4 or 5 pound trigger. I don't want a 2.5 pound trigger in a pistol I'm using to defend myself. And it would be loaded with Pilgrim Torch ammo. And yes, I'm biased towards them, but we've thrown their 50 grain ammo at a ton of 3A soft body armor. It shredded every single one of them. So, and it doesn't over penetrate. Still with firearms, suppressed 300 blackout SBR. The pistol would actually be my second choice. The SBR would be my first choice. If somebody breaks into my house and I got to go deaf, that doesn't jive for me. So I should be able to shoot without blowing my eardrums out.
What do you say?
Mike has obviously done that.
Yeah, says the mad bomber.
Too late for him.
Yeah. So none of these are in order, but just because we're shopping for another piece of property, either where our cabin is in North Georgia or preferably in Tennessee, a spring-fed well in our backyard that nobody else knows anything about. I want a source of running water. A more comprehensive FAK that has things like emergency stash of antibiotics. A good example, our friend Lane Kelly owns Round Table Munitions, lives in Tracy City, Tennessee. Moved their daughter to Richmond, Kentucky a few months ago. Had to make a couple trips back and forth, just south of Murfreesboro. And his left shoe somehow irritated the outside of his foot, and he ended up with a really bad infection. And so there was no break in the skin, but it essentially turned into a diabetic ulcer. And he hadn't been diagnosed with diabetes or anything like that. And it put him down for the count for 3 months. Now, Lane was a paramedic for many years in Bradley County, Tennessee, Cleveland, Tennessee. And he had around 15 large rolls of gauze, and they went through that in about the first 10 days. So when you're stockpiling stuff for SHTF, what you think is a reasonable quantity may not be. So I would have a heavily stocked medical supply. So the next one I put on my list before Eric was able to adjust his schedule and be on the show. So yeah, super biased here, but I would have a massive stockpile of nutrient survival food because I don't want to eat stuff that tastes like crap, but I still want it to be be healthy, right? So a lot of MREs are just, they're disgusting. I'd eat them if I had to, but why would I do that when Eric's got all these products that taste amazing, and they don't have all the other crap in them that a lot of other products do. They're not laden with sugar and all that sort of stuff. I would have solar panels and power stations. We already have that stuff, so I've got a power source. I would want a very nimble e-bike. We got approached by a bunch of e-bike companies 3 months ago. And so over 24 were sent to us. And we put them through their paces. We hooked up with some local experts and whatnot. And I'll tell you what, if the roads are plugged up, which all you got to do is see an evac during a hurricane here, I-95, I-75 parking lot from South Florida to the Georgia border. So the one e-bike that my wife has got dual batteries on it. And if you use the motor with no pedal assist, just you're leaning on the motor and the batteries, 120-mile range that we confirmed with big racks on it and everything. So it's a utility vehicle as well. 80% charge within 90 minutes, hooked up to a power station, that's got a solar panel hooked up to it. So one, for us, we're in decent condition. We could ride a regular bicycle if necessary, but unless we're really close to an EMP, an electric e-bike, is a better option because you can cover more ground faster. And by the way, we have no affiliate relationships with any of these companies. We just found that it's a really compelling survival tool. You can take on-road, off-road, all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is somewhere around 40% of Americans are considered obese. 32% of Americans are considered overweight. You probably got somewhere around 75% of our population are not in good enough condition to cover any serious ground on the ankle express or on a regular bicycle. So we're not going to preach to our audience and say, you got to exercise, you got to eat. That's not our job. That's a personal decision. Our job is to kind of point out viable tools for survival purposes. And an e-bike, pretty viable for a lot of people. We got a lot of emails from people saying, hey, I have this disability or that disability. I'm on a budget. I'm looking for an e-bike. You can buy these things for $500 for crying out loud. Like you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. So that would be on my list. Fire starting kit, of course. Ham radio, preferably something that, does digital stuff as well. So if the network is still up, I have the benefit of accessing the digital network as well as, regular ham radio plus NOAA channels and all that kind of stuff. I'd have a fixed blade knife that I knew I could rely on. And, I'm not going to name names, but we got sent a Kakuri not too long ago, used it for about an hour, lopped some up to 2-inch limbs off of trees at our cabin in North Georgia. There was a twig coming out of the ground. It's red Georgia clay. And I smacked it with it and it bent the end of the dang knife. So that brand wouldn't be the one, but what would be the one would be Tops Knives. They're a fantastic company, and we don't have an affiliate relationship with any company that I've mentioned so far, by the way. They're just, we like their products, good products. That's my top 10, but I got a couple of honorable mentions. Livestock, garden, which we already have, and a deuce and a half, which I have as well. So,
it's a bug out vehicle, right?
Well, if I can't get around people in an e-bike, I can go over them in the deuce and a half.
That makes sense. I like that. No, solid list. Wow. I really like that. So I'm going to pass it off to the Army Ranger here. I want to know what a Ranger thinks the top 10 items you need for urban survival are.
Not just a Ranger, but Smart Ranger, because there's two kinds of Rangers.
Even more dangerous.
That's right.
Smart Ranger, not Strong Ranger.
Yeah, the smart ones don't actually like to be miserable, and that would be me. No, I always say you don't have to practice misery to be good at it. So anyway, well, I guess I start from the vantage of I live very close to a urban center, and so I'm just outside of Reno, and to the point where I actually see from time to time folks, vagrants, etc., roaming through our neighborhood, and I know that could probably turn into a pretty big mob at any point in time if there were the right incentives, if you know what I mean. So I really think of this SHTF event in an urban scenario. I'm not downtown, but I'm close enough. And I see my home as my castle. So I'm not out, North Georgia cutting tree limbs and growing gardens necessarily, right? I've got a little patch. We do have some running water in front, but that's an irrigation ditch and whatnot. So there are some things around that would help me, live off the land to some degree. But I'm going to be competing for that coyote like the neighbor next door at some point in time. I'm also assuming that this is a fairly, I guess, is it a short-term disruption versus a long-term disruption? And there's probably some differences, but again, you're going to have most of your stuff in your home. And I think if it came to it, my intent would be to keep a low profile, keep a low signature. I'm assuming this is, the grid's out. It's a natural disaster. Maybe there's some civil unrest. Maybe it's another, pandemic shelter in place situation, lockout, lockdown, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing for me is water. And I would have, and I actually have all my props back here. I've got a gallon of Clorox bleach, a gallon of that. And so 1 tablespoon will purify 5 gallons of water. And I really don't care if I'm drinking sediment. I would rather drink clean, water free of bacteria and bugs. So 1 gallon, that'll get you a long way. Anyway, I think I at one point did some math and it was about a pool, pool's worth of water. So for me, that's kind of number one. Number two is sustenance, food. And again, if you're sheltering in place, if the home is your castle, most folks, I believe, probably would be able to survive for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how big your pantry is. There's a lot of stuff in there, but you got to count on the refrigerator being gone. So you need to have, long-term storage. And I'm not talking necessarily about our stuff, although thank you, Chris, for that shameless plug for us. I appreciate that very, very much. I eat my stuff every day. And I think that's another important thing. In fact, this is my oatmeal that I have in my pantry. And what I even do is I've got little check marks on the back. And I make sure that I understand, is this enough to get me through? And is it measuring up to what I expect this to feed me with? Because a lot of times a serving is not a serving. Serving for me may not be a serving for Chris. So I want to be sure that I have a good count and that I like the food, right? So this has got 12 lines through it. So I know I'm about 12 servings, and each one of these is, 18 or whatever it is. But the point is, you got to like what you eat and make sure that it's going to get you through. Okay. So food is kind of another one. I also like to have our big bucket on hand, because there's a bunch of food in there, and then you can use the bucket also for all kinds of things. Go out to the irrigation ditch and bring back some water that you can purify with your bleach. So that's kind of number, I guess, 2. Number 3 for me is power. I have a Jackery generator. I don't have an affiliate relationship with anybody either, by the way. But anyway, and you can see that this panel is right behind me, because again, in a civil unrest situation, you want to keep a low profile. I don't know if having a generator running is in my best interest. And at some point in time, you're going to run out of fuel. I don't think the big globe in the sky is going to, burn out and turn into a Death Star. So I'm always going to be able to count on that. The problem with these solar generators versus the fuel powered one is, it takes a long time. So if you've got some time, and the power on these varies. This guy back here is 1,000 watts, and that's not very much, but, and still it was $1,000, $1,500, something like that. So it's not a cheap investment, but for me, it's going to get me through. I'll be able to power my electronics, have a small, camp refrigerator if I want to have something like that for medicines and other things like that. But I'm counting on living out of the pantry versus out of the refrigerator. The next one that I would have, again, is probably my phone and communication. Chris talked about having a ham radio. I think that's probably another great addition that I didn't have on my list. But the nice thing, again, is along with your phone, you need to make sure that you've got your charging cables. And I've got all that with me as well. And these new generators have all these USB hookups, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I like to have for, I'll call this another item, I guess this is number 5, is the Red Cross hand crank generator, which, it's kind of goofy, but it's so light and you can take it with you, and you're always going to have power with you. Now, you'll probably burn more calories than you're going to get out of it, but I mean, that's it, right? So, and you've got a light function on it. So I really like this thing for camping and for all sorts of different things, just in a, in a handy situation. Of course, I'm getting to my firearms as well. So I would start with my rifle, and I like the AR-15, and plenty of ammunition. I've got all that handy. Okay. And then for a sidearm, 9mm staccato P is what I like and what I shoot. Because I won't be concealing at that point. Okay. So I think that's probably number 7. A knife, a fixed blade knife, like Chris said, I've got mine right here.
Nice.
And you need to have a fixed blade versus your EDC, your little snapper, right? Because that fixed blade, like Chris said, is going to help you out with heavier duty jobs. And, you'll use it for hacking, you'll use it for prying, a lot of different versatile aspects. So again, make sure that you know what that knife is capable of, and that you're comfortable with it. I would go to first aid as well. And I just have a little IFAK back here, but most homes are going to have tons, at least we have tons of our medicines, our supplies. I think Chris's point around, make sure you've got, just like toilet paper, you don't expect to burn through toilet paper. Remember what that was, right? The new rule, never walk past a display of toilet paper without grabbing one. We laugh about it now, but in a survival situation, you're probably going to make do with, torn up t-shirts and anything that you can get your hands on. Again, you're in your house. And if you're like most people, most Americans, you got a lot of stuff in your house that you're going to get really smart about how you use. Okay. So I'll keep going. My tool set. I've got a handy little multi-tool. I think those are great to have on you at all times anyway. But if I'm on my home and there's an urban SHTF scenario, I've got a garage full of tools, and I would absolutely keep those handy. Some are more useful than others, but don't underestimate. They're also great for bartering. What an extra hammer could probably get you in a situation is probably not a bad deal. Yeah. I don't know what I'm up to, but I think that's about it. I guess the last thing, I'm at 10. I'm done.
It's
oh
okay.
Man. All right.
Honorable mentions.
Honorable
mentions, man.
Well, my honorable mention. So, I'm not sure if the we have gas stoves are going to be off or not, right? If I'm going to have gas lines. So I would say, make sure that you've got a lot of potential fuel, propane. If you jet boils as well, I've got a whole closet full of these little propane tanks that are great, and that you're super comfortable using and starting. You can start them with a little flint ferrous rod, whatever you want, and they're super handy. But propane comes in handy. So I think that would be probably my honorable mention, having a fuel source, a heat source that can give me some warm food from time to time. If the stove goes out, or if I don't have electricity and I don't want to burn out my generator with warming up a cup of noodles. So there you go.
No, really awesome. I love the little hand crank generator. I hadn't thought about that. That one's really cool. So I definitely enjoyed that one. All right, Mike, let's hear it. I want to see what our EOD expert has to say.
Okay. I didn't bring any explosives, so it's cool.
Oh.
All right. And I kind of figured you guys were going to go with with I hate to say it, more mainstream stuff. So I kind of went a little sideways with a few things here, right? Just to bring out some interesting stuff. So first, mobility. Of course, my number one item.
Yep.
Boots, good quality boots, and merino wool socks. I am a big fan of smart wool. If you don't got that, you don't got no mobility. You ain't got no mobility, you're done. Try living through one of these situations in a pair of friggin' cheap tennis shoes from Walmart. Ain't gonna work. Okay. Next, food. So I was looking at this more from a suburban point of view, less from the urban point of view. So this is something that I keep all the time with me in my kit. And Mikhail Murkoff from Emberlit. Tyler White turned us on to him. And, here in the South, you have a lot of drainage ponds all over the place. There's ditches with fish and all kinds of stuff like that. Frogs, you name it. This is called a CABUYA. Okay. So if you go to Emberlit, Tyler White brought these back from the Amazon with him, this design, and it's a whole fishing set right here. Now, of course, this is just for, cast practice, but I got a little fishing kit that goes into it. It's little, it's tiny. It's great for if you're on the move, you see some fish in a pond, throw them in a few times, snag a couple things, bring it in. I use these on rivers and creeks and stuff all the time when I'm out camping. It works great. It's wonderful. You just cast it out and then you just wrap yourself right back up onto it. It's great. Yeah. Mikhail has got some really innovative stuff out there, and I presume, Chris, we're gonna when we publish this up, we're gonna put links to a lot of this stuff.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Okay. Next is gonna be it's gonna be more of a water and food set. I kind of went with the individual stuff here, so I have kind of a kit here. I know it's multiple items, but it's one item. So I use a Nalgene single wall 38-ounce bottle. The stainless steel works like a charm. I can boil water in it. I can cook in it. I do all that stuff in this thing. It nests inside of a GSI 24-ounce cup with a little fold-out handles on it. I also keep a small snare wrapped around it. It actually, I've actually never used it for this one for snaring, but it works awesome for being able to hang this from a stick over my fire. So, it's a multi-use item. And then for the kit, I've got this little DZO universal stainless steel lid. It's got little drain holes in it and stuff like that, and a little flip up handle. It works pretty good. It was cheap. So yeah, so there's that. That's a good kit. Also from Mikhail, this is my next one. Under fire, I have an Emberlit Fire Ant titanium ultralight backpack stove. And this thing is cool. I suggest that if you decide that you're going to buy one of these, don't buy them from Cabela's or any of the online sources. There's a real good chance that you're going to wind up getting some, Chinese knockoff, but it's just one of these little puzzle stoves you slap together. I can cook in this thing using very minimal materials. It's great. Buy them direct from Emberlit. Okay, if you're gonna get them from him, and look at the factory seconds page, because he always winds up with seconds, and he is just absolutely ridiculously anal retentive about what he's willing to sell on the front page. You go to the factory seconds, man, you get all kinds of great deals and stuff from him. So, but yeah, one of these little stoves, man, it's great. I use way less fuel, and I'm able to do all the cooking that I need to, and it keeps your light signature down significantly as well. And if you're in a suburban environment, you want to use less fuel. You want to make sure that you're, you want your fuel to get stretched out. So yeah, I keep all that stuff in there. Let's see what's next. Oh, just as an individual item, back to the basics, kids. Regular USGI poncho that smells ridiculously like a lot of smoke. So obviously it's been getting used. All right. But a regular poncho, there's so many different great uses for those things. Stick with them. They're great. I add additional grommets onto mine. Got extra grommets on it. So because they only wind up with I think they'll have 6 grommets on them total. So I got a grommet punch and punched a whole bunch of extra grommets into it. It gives me a whole lot more flexibility when I'm putting it out as a shelter. So yeah, Eric, you know exactly the shelter that I'm talking about.
I love. I have my poncho right here. I didn't bring it up because I'm thinking I've got the roof over my head, brother.
Oh, I do too. But this is a nice thing for schlepping around with.
I agree. Okay. I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing I wanted to point out is if you looked at Mike's cooking stuff, it's clear he's been using that. So this is an important point just to bring up here in context. Guys, we got to use your gear. to make sure it works. So kudos to you,
Sure.
Mike, for actually getting out in the field and doing it.
Yeah, this stuff gets the hell used out of it, man. I'm telling you.
Nice.
I've actually burned through one of these cups
Oh, wow.
that I used so much that I actually weakened the base enough that I was like, I don't think I'm gonna. I think that's going into the, hey, we're gonna use this as an example for training.
Nice.
And that's it. Okay, next. Anybody can carry a gun, right? I get it. You guys covered all those. I'm not gonna go that way. I'm going to go with a multi-use item.
Claymore.
Nope. The Stanley FUBAR Wrecking
Nice.
Bar.
I love it. That's great.
Okay. So this is the small one. These things go up to 48 inches in length.
Wow.
If they're over 30 inches, the 30-inch one is about the biggest that I would be willing to carry. All right. So it's got everything. It's got a hammerhead. It's got pry points. You can yank nails.
Nice.
You can pry doors. Honestly, I got turned onto this thing as a small breaching tool. It works awesome for that kind of stuff. All right. So if you need to be able to get into stuff, things like that, man, this is a great tool. It's a multi-use tool. I mean, if you've got to, whack somebody with it, I suppose, it would definitely not be happy. I would much rather go with, a gun or a knife or something like that, or not get into a fight at all. Yeah. But it's a great little tool to throw into there. And again, that's the Stanley FUBAR tool. And it weighs a bloody ton. So you're not going to bug out carrying that thing on your pack. You're just not going to do it. It's a special use item. Okay. Knives. I'm like you guys, man. Tops all day long. All right. I carry a Bob Brothers of Bushcraft special. I love it. It's a wonderful knife. My son, he carries a Brakimo. Okay. I like them. They work well. I keep a ferro rod and a bunch of paracord on here. And heck, I've even got a little rescue whistle on there, So, wonderful knives. You're never going to break them. Okay. And the big thing about them is that really, really fat, wide spine on it. That means it's not just a knife. It's a tool. All right. All the field craft stuff that you need to do, you can do. Love their knives. Again, I also am not affiliated with Tops. So, let's see what other kind of stupid stuff we got here. Oh, light. Light is a really nice thing. And I don't go anywhere. I don't have any lights that aren't headlamps. And I've talked about this one before. So this is the Petzeltika headlamp. It's a 200 lumen light. And this is something that I just found out. It also has the buckle is also a signal whistle. Who knew that was a thing? I actually wound up having to look at the website to figure out, is that what that is? But the big thing about this is, so you get regular light, you get 3 different levels of regular light. The one thing that I don't like about it is that little glow in the dark band there. So usually I'll wear it strung around my neck. I have it turned on, and if I all of a sudden need to turn it off and need to go into a position where it's a light discipline situation, I can't have anybody seeing me, I got to tuck that thing into my shirt. Just one more thing that you got to think of. Upside, downside. But here's the reason that I love carrying this. So I can use regular AAA batteries in it, or my personal favorite, I also got the Petzl AccuCore battery packs for them. And if you look right there, it's a lithium ion battery, 1250 milliamp hours, right? And you can just charge it from any USB device.
Right.
And I can just pop this out, throw AAA batteries into it if I want to, right? But I've found that just one of these will usually run for the equivalent of three sets of batteries. So awesome. It's good that, and I can plug it in any of my systems or, your little hand crank thing, and get a little charge on that thing. It's lithium ion, so it's not going to gain a memory or anything like that. Let's see. The thing that I'm always preaching on, maps, paper maps of your area. You don't have paper maps, you have nothing. All right.
Good point.
Using the phone is great. Using GPS is great. better have that map, better know how to use it, right? Not just your neighborhood, not just your city, but your state and the surrounding states. You should have all those maps. Me, I travel all over the country and all over the world. I have an entire, no joke, I have an entire filing cabinet full of just maps. It's ridiculous. Then again, I have topo maps of places like, the Panama Canal Zone.
Yeah, I've got that one.
Yeah. Okay, and then my last one, of course, IFAKs, right? Good blowout kits. But not just that. I am exactly with you guys. Get yourself good IFAKs. I don't care if you get them from NAR, Refuge Medical. These blowout kits that we did at Crisis Application Group, we're the first ones to have come up with these. We kind of patented these for North American Rescue, so we still get really good deals on these. But long-term kits, and just like you were saying, Chris, also having the medications and stuff to be able to fill up on that, and all the additional stuff on there. And to Chris's point, with the additional medical supplies, if you want a really good idea of the levels of material that you need for one long-term care casualty, look over at Refuge Medical. Bears guys have got that bucket of medical supplies, and it's just like 100 4x4 gauze pads and 100 of this and 100 of that. It's a 5-gallon bucket filled with this stuff, and that's what you're going to use for one long-term care injury.
Wow.
Yeah, a bunch of I want to say they're like, the 4x9 ABD pads and all that stuff. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot. You are going to go through a lot of medical supplies in long-term or in prolonged care, period. And you got to assume that you're going to have that. So that's my list. Oh, and the honorable mention, because anybody that's ever camped anywhere near me or been around me when I was in the field or anything like that, coffee. If I don't have coffee, if I don't have little packs of coffee, yeah, something bad's going to happen. Something real bad. I mean, it's war crimes time. Heck, I even have a couple of these little Death Wish coffees.
Oh, that's hardcore.
Yeah. Some days, bad night, some days I got to have something to get me going. And yeah. And just remember, it's never a war crime the first time. So
words to live by there from Mike Sterling. I appreciate that.
I grabbed that from the fat electrician, man. That's not me.
Fair enough. Awesome list. No, I love the multi-tool with the pry bar, the Stanley tool. That was really cool. Not something I had thought of. It's a really great addition there. So, all right. So here's to round us out here. I have my top 10 list. And I think one of the things that we have to consider if we're going into a survival situation is we have to be flexible. We have to be able to improvise on the fly and things like that. And so some of you in the comments may say that I broke the rules of the top 10 list, but I call it improvisation here. So first off, I think the thing that you're going to need most importantly for a survival situation is you need to have a plan. You need to know what you're going to do. To speak to Mike's top issue, you need to have a map. You need to be ready to, exfiltrate if you're from work. Plan how you're going to get home without a car if you have to work outside the home. I know a lot of people are now working from home, and that's great. But if you have to drive to work, figure out how you're going to get home. And then once you get home, what are you going to do? Are you going to be bunkering in? Are you going to bug out? What's your plan? Have a plan and know what you're going to do. I think that's the number one thing that you're going to need to survive any type of urban disaster scenario. The second thing, I know we're pushing the e-bikes, but I think that a little bit more into that is physical toughness. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be, like a power lifter like Chris, or a former power lifter, I should say. You don't have to be, built like an Army Ranger. Lord knows I'm not built like an Army Ranger, but you need to be physically tough and able to just push through adversity. I think that any disaster situation is going to have a lot of physicality to it. And I mean that you're going to be walking more, you're going to be working more, not, laying down and crying that your legs hurt or that your arms are tired and just pushing through it having that physical toughness is going to be so critically important to your survival and being able to use your gear. That's why I made that mention that when Mike whipped out his stove, he's clearly been using his gear. So he's got that going for him. Now, it would be great if you could get in shape before something like this happens. But I understand there are situations like Chris was saying earlier, we have people with disabilities here. And sometimes that's just not in the cards for some folks. But just being physically tough and being able to push through it is something that you can start working on now. Mental toughness is my number 3 on here. And like I said, I kind of went a little more outside the box than Mike did, which is impressive because Mike lives outside the box. I don't think
that's
he knows where
he
the box
blew
is.
the damn box up. There is
That's
no
right.
box.
He doesn't know where the size of the box are anymore.
The box is too mainstream.
It is. It is. We don't need boxes. That's why we have bags here. But mental toughness, I think, is going to be one of the most critical things that you're going to need to survive a situation like this. Having that survival mindset, but just visualizing what could happen ahead of time can give you so many advantages over to someone else who's just like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I don't know what's going to happen. What am I going to do? At least you will have thought about these things ahead of time. One of the things that I believe Mike said in our last video was one of the best people you can have in your survival group is a counselor or a religious priest or what, a religious figure to help you deal with those mental stresses that you're going to have to deal with. Because I can say from my own personal experience, when we had like a power outage here or like the whole neighborhood was out, it's so quiet and that messes with you because you're so used to having all that white noise going on in the background, all the air conditioners running. If you're in the city, you have the city noises. That's all going to stop, especially if we're talking like a really bad disaster scenario. That's going to stop and there are going to be new noises that you're not used to, and that's going to wear on you. So being mentally tough, preparing yourself for that ahead of time, and knowing how loud it is when you move around when that white noise isn't there can be a very important thing to be, self-aware of and preparing yourself to deal with a situation like that. I kind of went with Eric on this one. Water purification is going to be so critically important. Rule of threes, 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Those last couple of days or weeks are going to be pretty hellacious, especially without water. So having your ability to purify that water, regardless of whether it's a bottle of bleach like Eric has, a filter, something like that. We want to make sure that we're not killing ourselves with what we're drinking. Cholera is pretty nasty, so I've heard. I don't want to experience it firsthand. So that and dysentery, I think we'll pass on those. But also knowing where your water sources are in an urban environment. What is your solution for water? Now, this kind of comes down to planning a little bit, but knowing where your water sources are that aren't like 3 miles away, because hiking with 5 gallons of water 3 miles is not a fun experience, and you're going to be a target at that point, especially on the way back, because it's heavy. I just put it right now, it's heavy, and if you haven't practiced that, it's going to be tough. Your physical stockpiles, we've kind of talked about, hit on here really hardcore, talking about having food, having freeze-dried food like Nutrient Survival is awesome. Whatever you have, I mean, beans, rice, and Mylar bags is better than trying to eat dandelions out of your grass or trying to scavenge for something, because when this goes down, it's going to go down pretty hardcore. There's not going to be anything left in the stores. You need to have your physical stockpiles at your place of residence, whether that's an apartment, whether that's a home in the suburbs. And having those things is so critically important because 3 weeks without food is the rule. But like I said, that last week is going to be pretty bad and you're not really going to be able to function. Now, I haven't went through ranger training like Eric, who's had to go through things like that. But, if you're not prepared to deal with what hunger is really like and what working on a calorie deficit is like, that's pretty rough. I can only say, from abstract and not experience, but I don't think it's something that many people are going to want to have to deal with.
You can't run a V8 on a gallon of gas.
No, you can't. That's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Great line there. So self-defense skills and the tools to know and knowledge how to use them. We've talked about it. Whether it's a firearm, whether it's a knife, whether it's a board with nails stuck in it, whether it's a baseball bat, know what it's going to be. I understand that, we have people here who live overseas. We don't just cater to the North American audience. So, know what your legalities are in your area, and at least have something. Have a dog. We talked about dogs last week on defending your home. Having something to help you defend your place of residence is a great thing to have, and something that's going to be critically important because somebody may come knocking that you don't necessarily like all that much, who wants to take your stuff. Next one, number 7, I recommend having a prepper library. Something, books like this, so critically important, because the truth is, I know we like to preach like practicing everything and being ready to go, but the truth is you can't learn everything. Some skills you're just not going to have, or not have the ability to practice them, and having at least a guide on hand to help you in that emergency situation can be something that could be the difference between life and death. I don't necessarily know how to tie every knot in the book, how to tie a snare, but I have no doubt that I have it in a book in my library, so that if I need that in that moment, I can do it. Now, obviously, for a bug out situation, that's not going to be the best option. So maybe having a digital copy. I know Chris has talked in previous SDNs about downloading PDFs on your phone. If the grid is still up and we haven't been EMP'd, that's a great way to have those things in a much more carryable package, because I don't think you're going to be packing around this in your bug out bag way, way too heavy. Except maybe Mike. He might have his
bag needs more weight. Put this big book in it.
Exactly. You may need a little more exercise, right?
Attach it with some MOLLE to the front of your plate carrier.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Soak up bullets all day long.
Quick draw right there. We got the Quick Draw Country Living Encyclopedia. I like it. Another thing to consider for urban survival is food sustainability. Now, of course, we all want to make sure that we have our stockpiles ready to go, but eventually that's going to run out. That being said, we can stretch those stockpiles longer by having things that we can grow in our homes, in our backyards, in your gardens, or even if you're living in an apartment, you could have something like a windowsill planter or a container garden. These are things that you can start working on now. And if you're really cool and you have a really cool landlord who will maybe let you start a rooftop garden for everybody to share from, that's a great asset to start working on now. But if you don't have that, there are mushroom kits that you can get from your big box stores. You can start growing your own sprouts. I'm not going to recommend hunting for mushrooms unless you know what you're doing. That's a good way to have to rely on those antibiotics that Chris recommended having.
It's going to wind up DRT right in the middle of the forest.
Now, there's that too. You could be fertilizer. So I don't recommend hunting for mushrooms, but if you do have an edible mushroom kit that you can grow, great thing to help kind of spread that out and give you a little more flavor in your food, because beans and rice are going to get pretty bland pretty fast. And so having that morale boost, kind of like what Mike was talking about with coffee, so he doesn't commit war crimes, obviously a very important thing. All right, number 9, have a home security plan. We talked about this in our video last week. If you haven't watched that, watch last week's Survival Dispatch News. And if you haven't done so yet, I should have told you about this earlier. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Get down there in the comments section. Let us know how big of a cheater I am for doing all of these containers, of things you need for urban survival and how I cheated. But keep it going. But yeah, have that security plan in place. Know what you're going to do. I even recommend having a drawing of how you're going to change the layout of your apartment or home in a disaster situation. If you're looking to try and create those fatal funnels to funnel attackers into a certain area, think about how you want to do that. Draw it up, make a little plan, put it on the back of a pizza box, whatever works best for you. Have an idea and make sure that you have a plan in place instead of like, oh no, it's going down. What the heck am I going to do? You at least have an idea of how you're planning on defending your home. And of course,
you can go to survivaldispatch.com, hover over the store menu, and download our home defense guide for free.
Completely free download. Make sure you get your hands on that amazing resource. I've read through it myself. It's really, really good. So that can give you some ideas on things to kind of get going. And then the last one, my number 10, is going to be non-combat skills. This is going to be like your street smarts, being self-aware, knowing where bad areas are in your town and your local areas, things that you want to stay away from, and where places are that are safer. I won't say safe, but safer. And just having that knowledge of like, okay, yeah, this is a kind of a shady part of town. I'm not going to go over there. There's a lot of people there who have less than good intentions. And just having some of those skills, maybe just practicing a little bit, first aid skills, handyman skills, knowing how to garden. These things are things that can help you not only survive a situation like this, but survive it a little bit more comfortably than someone who, has no idea and plays, Streets of Tarkov for their life and thinks that that's what it's going to be like. So that is my top 10 list, guys. Let me know again in the comments, what are your top 10 lists? We want to know what you guys think, because we have some of the best subscribers on YouTube here. I really want to know what you guys have in mind. What did we miss? What is critically important for survival in an urban situation? Guys here on the panel, thank you so much. A lot of amazing insights, to say the least. It was awesome having each of you here. And I think that all of you had something that I hadn't even considered. And I know I've been, jotting down notes here for, stuff that I need to add to my kit. It's been really great having everybody here today, to say the least. Go for it, Mike.
Love being here. I got a couple of things that I would like to circle back around to.
Okay, go for it.
If we could. If you don't mind. Yeah. Big Chris, man, you're right on it, on everything. I did have a couple of things for Eric, though. So one thing on your bleach. One thing for everybody to remember: bleach only has, and I'm throwing out the old chemistry schooling here.
Yep.
Bleach only has about a 6-month shelf life. Nominal bleach off the shelf is going to be anywhere between 5 and 6% HTH, active ingredient. But it's in a long downstream. By the time it hits 6 months, it's only going to be about 2% nominal. Okay. After it's been on the shelf for 6 months, that's in your house. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's going out. My suggestion, I got away from that for a very long time ago. I got away from that by going to pool shock. I get granular pool shock. Make sure you get the stuff that that does not have any scents or any of the weed killers or anything like that in it. Okay. So just plain pool shock, it's got about a 20-year shelf life. Okay. Get a bucket of it and it'll take care of several 100,000 gallons of water for you. You just gotta do your calculations. I want to say it's a teaspoon into a gallon of water, and now you have that 6% bleach. So keep one of those bottles around. No next thing, so your solar systems for both of you guys. One of the things, like I said, I was just up in New Jersey, and the skies were very cloudy and very dark because of all that smoke coming out of Canada. If you were if you're near an urban environment or suburban environment or anything like that, you're probably going to have a lot of fires. Okay, so just plan that your solar is not going to give you good output for a period of time. All right, just plan on that.
No, it's a pain, no doubt.
Right. And Eric, for your hand crank system, I have a suggestion for you. Instead of those little okay, so my mouth's not working today. It's coffee make the brain no worky. May I suggest the Midland ER310? I have no affiliation with Midland or anything like that. I've got these. So it is it's got a flashlight. It's got a built-in lithium-ion battery in it, so you can have it plugged into a USB source. It also has a little tiny solar panel on top that really doesn't do a very good job, but it gives you enough power to get something going into the battery. It also has a hand crank on the back, which will get you a whole lot further. You can charge your phones off of it, plus you can charge it from a wall bank. It's got AM, FM, and shortwave radio built into it, and it also has a flashlight. It has a strobe. If you keep it inside your like little safe room, and the house collapses and you're in your safe room, it has a little screecher dog whistle on it. So you just push the button and and it'll pop that off. The rescuers are looking for you. They'll know that you're down there. All right. So that's a plus.
What was the model again, Mike?
That is the ER310. And they're cheap. I mean, I'm looking at them on Amazon for $59. And it does a whole bunch of things. I keep one inside of our family kit just as an option. The big thing is, it gives you information coming in. That's a big thing. So, And we talked about the buckets from refuge. Let's see. Food sustainability for you, Chris. Little Chris. So food sustainability, this is one thing that I absolutely learned. And I know I got a lot of people that I know that keep their seed vault. And these people have never gardened a single day in their life. Any of you that have gardened out there before, you're going to know that you are going to fail at all kinds of things. You are going to make so many mistakes. You are going to kill so many plants. Gardening isn't just, I'm going to put a seed in the ground in whatever dirt I put it in, and I'm going to water it. Okay. You're going to kill so many plants. It's going to be ridiculous if you've got a brown thumb like me. Okay. Garden now. If you're going to do sustainability, make your mistakes now when you can go, okay, 75-cent fix. I'm going to go back down to Walmart, and I'm going to pick up another packet of seeds. Okay. You can get away with it now. Learn those lessons now. They're not all written down. Okay. So yeah, I'm absolutely with you on that. And also, Chris, on the awareness skills, and this is going to be the shameless plug here. We're going to be having Mike Shelby from Forward Observer on here pretty soon. And Mike Shelby, his biggest thing is the Forward Observer Area Intelligence Studies. If you haven't done an area intelligence study of your area, then I strongly suggest that you sign up for that kind of stuff. I was kicking myself in the teeth because I knew better. I knew that I needed to have a full intelligence workup of my area, because it's not somebody in Russia or China that's going to wind up killing you. It's not even somebody on the opposite side of the country that's going to wind up killing you. It's the drug gang 3 blocks over that it's going to wind up over there. And guess what? If you don't actually know that they're there, you're going to be shocked to find out about it when they come rolling into your neighborhood. Now, are you? Okay.
That's for sure.
And you would be astounded. I was amazed at how forthcoming my sheriff's department was with intelligence. Because I just told them, hey, I'm coming at this from the point of view of, we have a neighborhood watch. I'm the guy with the neighborhood watch. I'm trying to do an intelligence study. And of course, they looked at me and said, for your neighborhood watch, gotcha, here. Now, they're not giving names or anything like that, but they're given groups and activity, right? And if you know that, man, you are way out ahead. And if you understand who your I hate to say it, but your local area shitheads are, your known shitheads, man, you're going to be one step up. That, and just like we talked about before, that preachers are not only a wonderful source for counseling, they are one of the best intelligence sources you are ever going to find, because they know everybody. They know who's screwing up, who's doing what bad, who's doing what good. Okay. They know all the dirt in an entire community on the backside. They know everything. They're an incredible intelligence source. All right. So find you a preacher. And honestly, Chris, you have the absolute best honorable mention of all, the pizza box.
Yep. Back of the pizza box. That's where the best laid plans are made.
That's right.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for that, Mike. Now, one thing we want to start doing here on the Survival Dispatch News is highlighting our top comment from our last video. Now, if you haven't seen that, go make sure you check it out. But this week's top comment, is coming from Todd Beck. Thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and put that up on screen here real quick. And he says that he agrees that fire is the biggest issue you could have in an urban environment. And wouldn't fire be the first choice for someone who's trying to breach your property? This is a big issue. He asked for us to do a whole show on fire defense. Well, guess what, Todd? We're going to do it. Next week's Survival Dispatch News is all going to be about fire defense for your home, to make sure you're ready in case somebody comes knocking with the torches and pitchforks in their hand. So make sure you sign up for that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell. Leave us a like. Tell us what we missed in the comments. And we'll catch you on the next Survival Dispatch News.